Here are 3 creepy, true urban exploration horror stories that showcase the chilling experiences of those who dared to venture into abandoned or haunted places. Story 1. The Silent Hospital Setting. An abandoned hospital in a decaying part of an urban city, rumored to be haunted. Narration. In the winter of 2015, a group of urban explorers set out to document the remnants of a long-abandoned hospital that closed in the early 2000s. The place held stories of neglect and decay, the perfect backdrop for their adventure. Armed with cameras and flashlights, they entered through a broken window, the wind whistling through the empty halls. As they roamed through the derelict building, they felt an oppressive silence, occasionally broken by the creaking of the old structure. They reached the surgical wing, where rusted instruments lay scattered on blood-stained tiles. The atmosphere was suffocating, but the explorers felt a thrill nonetheless. Suddenly, one of the group members, Sarah, heard a faint whispering from down the corridor. Curiosity piqued. She silently urged her friends to follow her as they crept towards the sound. The whispers grew clearer, sounding like muffled voices in a heated argument. They rounded a corner, but the source was gone. Instead, they found a room filled with old patient charts, the pages fluttering as if disturbed by an unseen force. One chart on the floor caught Sarah's eye. It was dated the day the hospital closed, describing a patient still unaccounted for. An ominous feeling settled over her. As they decided to leave, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over the group. They noticed a chilling presence in the air. From the corner of her eye, Sarah saw fleeting shadows darting through doorways. She turned to her friends, but they seemed oblivious. In a panic, they rushed back to the entrance, but the atmosphere felt heavier now. As they pushed through the broken window, Sarah glanced back and saw a figure standing in the hallway watching them. The face was indistinct, but a chilling smile formed on its lips, sending shivers down her spine. Once outside, they fled to their car, breathing heavily. Looking back, they noticed the hospital standing silent once more, as if the darkness had claimed it entirely. That night, they reviewed their footage. Among the captured images, they found something terrifying, a translucent figure lurking in the shadows of the surgical wing. The hospital remains abandoned, and to this day, those who dare to enter claim to hear whispers echoing through its halls. Story 2. The Old Subway Tunnel Setting. An old subway tunnel that had been sealed off for years due to a mysterious incident. Narration. In the summer of 2018, a group of urban explorers descended into the eerie depths of a disused subway tunnel in New York City. Rumors swirled about the tunnel being haunted after an incident decades earlier, but they were determined to uncover the truth. Equipped with headlamps and recording equipment, they descended through a maintenance hatch. The air was stale, heavy with a dampness that clung to their skin. As they moved deeper into the tunnel, they marveled at the decaying infrastructure, graffiti from various eras, and the unsettling silence that enveloped them. After exploring for a while, they stumbled upon an old subway car, covered in rust and grime. The car was devoid of any life, and the stillness felt oppressive. As they stepped inside, one of the explorers, Marcus, found an old newspaper clipping tucked beneath a seat. It detailed a horrific accident that had claimed several lives in the tunnel years before, including accounts of eerie sounds and figures seen by workers after the incident. Chilled by the discovery, they decided it was time to leave. However, as they retraced their steps, they began to hear inexplicable sounds echoing through the darkness, distant laughter, faint cries, and the unmistakable sounds of footsteps following them. Panic set in, but they pressed on, convinced it was all in their heads. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the temperature dropped. They reached a section of the tunnel that appeared to be closing in, filled with debris from a collapsed ceiling. Fearing for their safety, they turned to leave but found their path obstructed by an overwhelming shadow that seemed to pulse with darkness. The explorers could feel the presence bearing down on them as whispers filled the tunnel, words they couldn't make out. But the urgency in their tone was palpable. They sprinted back towards the entrance, their echoes bouncing off the walls. Once they finally emerged into daylight, they were breathless, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They discussed their experience in disbelief, but something felt different about the mood. That night, Marcus awoke to find messages scrawled on his mirror. "Stay away." This unsettling encounter left the explorers disturbed, and many reported feeling as if something was still following them. With their courage shaken, none of them returned to those tunnels again. Story 3. The Rooftop Ghost Setting, an abandoned high-rise building downtown, rumored to be a hotspot for paranormal activity. Narration. In late 2019, a trio of urban explorers, Jake, Emma, and Leo, decided to investigate a vacant high-rise that had been vacant for years. The building had fallen into disrepair, but local legends spoke of a ghostly woman seen wandering the rooftop at night. The trio gained access via an unsecured door and climbed through the empty floors, taking photos of the graffiti and destruction. The atmosphere felt charged, and they couldn't shake a feeling of being watched. As they reached the top floor, they prepared to ascend to the rooftop, eager to catch a glimpse of the city skyline. Once on the rooftop, they were amazed by the breathtaking view, but quickly felt an uncomfortable chill. They laughed it off and started taking pictures. However, after a few minutes, Emma noticed something peculiar, a figure standing at the edge of the roof, partially obscured by the wind-ravaged fabric of an old tarp. "Is that someone up there?" she questioned, pointing. But as Jake and Leo turned to look, the figure appeared to dissolve into thin air, vanishing into the night. The trio exchanged nervous glances, but Emma insisted it was just a trick of the light. As the night wore on, they decided to explore the rooftop further. However, the ominous feeling grew stronger, accompanied by a low hum that seemed to come from nowhere. Suddenly, Jake felt a cold hand grasp his shoulder. He whipped around, but no one was there. Panicked, they decided to leave, but as they approached the stairway, they heard the unmistakable sound of shoes tapping behind them. Heart pounding, Jake turned to confront whatever it was, but again, nothing was there. Tapping persisted, growing louder and closer. As they rushed back down the stairs, Emma glanced back and caught sight of the figure again, this time more defined. With long hair fluttering in the wind and a faint sorrowful expression, she screamed, prompting Leo to push forward faster. Once outside and back on the street, they sank against the cold concrete of the building, gasping for breath. In disbelief, they exchanged hurried accounts of what they experienced. Feeling unnerved, they decided it was a ghost. Perhaps the spirit of someone who had met a tragic end in the very building they had explored. In the weeks that followed, Emma began having nightmares featuring the ghostly woman standing on the rooftop, whispering her name. She reported feeling a pull, as if the spirit were trying to reach out. Eventually, Emma felt compelled to return to the building, seeking closure. She never came back. These true urban exploration stories highlight the eerie encounters that await those brave enough to challenge the remnants of forgotten places. Each location carries the weight of its past, and sometimes that darkness reaches out to touch the living. Thank you for watching.